What do the timelines look like for a securely attached person to really move through the 6 stages of a relationship? Well, if you weren't already familiar, every single relationship has 6 major stages. Now, this is based off of the work of Dr. Susan Johnson and then adapted here to really integrate out or separate out the dating and the honeymoon stage because they're very unique rites of passage for each of those. Now, in this particular video, we're going to cover the timelines, what the timelines look like to move, not just after the dating, honeymoon, and power struggle stage, but really to move to the bliss stage of a relationship. What does that look like? What does that mean? And what is the time period that it takes to reach that in terms of moving through the stability piece, the commitment piece, and getting to that place that I think everybody's really looking for deep down, which is the bliss stage, AKA our stage of really developing much more unconditional love for a partner than we ever might have experienced in the dating or honeymoon stages, for example. So I hope you enjoy this sneak peek from a webinar where we're going to discuss some of this in depth content and we're going to talk about these particular factors. Now, stability stage. Um, Stability stage in relationships, usually both parties or at least one party is you could have somebody who's fully secure and somebody who has a secondary secure or some secure. You could also have two people who are primarily different attachment styles that are insecure and both have a secondary secure style. It is extremely, extremely rare, unless there's like a cultural reason or religious reason or things of that nature, that people will make it to the stability stage of a relationship. Really, they'll probably stay in the power struggle stage. But you'll have to see that there's at least secondary attachment styles, at least a certain degree of stability, security to be in that stability stage together. So generally, if you're in the stability stage right now, listening, it's a really great sign. It means either the work you're doing has been paying off, and or maybe the work that your partner's been doing has been paying off, right? Maybe you're in a great space that way. So the stability stage is something easy for securely attached people. They tend to move quickly into the commitment stage from there because they easily adjust to the stability stage. They naturally start having the next conversations. They know all each other's patterns. They know how to take each other into consideration. And if there's little blips along the way, then they know that they can resolve them. They have a lot of confidence in their capacity to just work through whatever the pain point is or the challenge is. And so you'll see less arguing, less frequency of arguing, and you'll also see big time that um, arguments are resolved very quickly. Okay. Now, insecurely attached people, dismissive avoidance when they make it to this stage, dismissive avoidance rarely leave relationships or initiate a breakup in a relationship if they've made it to the stability stage. Dismissal avoidants get a lot of their needs met for security and comfort from a partner if they make it into the stability stage. Okay. So you'll actually see, I've seen dismissal avoidants get broken up with in the stability stage, who are on the receiving end, who then came to me as a client or who um, came to me after that happened. And dismissive avoidants take breakups in the stability stage harder than any other attachment style, in my opinion, because they really get this depth of like, okay, I let you in, right, which is so hard for a DA to do. And then not only did I let you in, but also, you know, they derive like a lot of relationships for a DA are also about security and comfort, right? So you'll see that big time. You'll see the next part here is that fearful avoidance may leave relationships in the stability stage. If they have a secondary secure style, sometimes fearful avoidance get into get into a dynamic where they it's just funny because I just came into the chat for the first time in so long. And Brooke, who I know is moving from DA, is like, oh, why would somebody want to break up after all that? And that's like how a DA would feel, right? Like, we've done all this work. I let you in. Like, why would we ever break up after this? And like, that tends to be the general space I see DAs enter into. And I find that DAs tend to be extremely committed. I'm sure there's exceptions. I really didn't see any exceptions personally. And I saw a lot of DA clients over the years, but DAs tend to be extremely, extremely committed once they get into the stability stage. Fearful avoidance may panic in the stability stage because their subconscious comfort zone is chaos. If fearful avoidance see an absence of chaos and that their nervous system is still dysregulated, they might go, oh my gosh, what is this? Like this is, and you'll hear fearful avoidance call it things like boring, it's lost its excitement, it's the spark, all these different things. And it's really important to be able to recognize at this point the difference between love and your attachment style being activated. Right. So you'll see sometimes fearful avoidance when their attachment traumas aren't activated because they're becoming more and more secure. When that's not there and they're moving more into unconditional love, there can be a bit of an adjustment for FAs in particular because they're like, well, what's going on? And sometimes FAs will try to regress the relationship back into the power struggle by picking more fights, by trying to sort of sabotage a little bit. And that's usually a sign, if you are there, that you actually have to do nervous system regulation work. Okay. So your subconscious is trying to recreate chaos because that's your internal comfort zone. So I've seen that come up quite often for fearful avoidance, important to pay attention to. APs can actually fear it a little bit as well. Um, I just want to see this comment here for 1 second. So Scott says, that's my experience as a DA. Expect stability in a relationship. Assume complete commitment at that point. Don't think of breaking up or giving up. Exactly. And that's a very beautifully articulated version of like what I've heard so many DAs say over the years is something almost exactly along those lines. Yeah. And Marceline, my subconscious is like, let's shake things up because you'll feel connected. That's very common for fearful avoidance, right? Like used to, because it's love as a child, right? Your subconscious associations to what love is as a child felt like what? Probably chaos, right? That's probably what you saw all the time. And it's interesting too, because I've seen people who try to really stay in other stages, try to like really hold the relationship back into the power struggle stage, for example, also never having really made it past, or people who are like really trying to hold the relationship in the honeymoon stage. Sometimes it's because it feels like, especially for APs, I see this a lot, but FAs too. It feels like when you go through the dating and honeymoon stage and then there's the power struggle stage, it's like, okay, we're still in that like passionate connected phase. And then the stability stage, when we actually like get good at taking each other into consideration and knowing where one another are at and loving more unconditionally, for a lot of APs and FAs, it's like the connection's dying. There's not this like intensity happening. And without the intensity, it must mean all these bad things. But it's like the intensity changes forms. It's like the intensity turns into depth of connection, security of connection, strength of connection, instead of roller coaster of connection. Okay. So it's sort of a coming at it from that space. And then all you'll see that happens next is then I just see all these comments in here sometimes, that understand, like, where's the chaos? Where's the passion? Right. So this belief, right, Susie, it's like chaos equals passion. Is it true? Right. And it's like, that's what your subconscious associated from childhood. That's what's so common for so many FAs, but it's like breaking those belief patterns is so valuable in the path to becoming so much more secure and being able to sit in that stability stage. And then we go into commitment. And commitment is characterized by like wanting to build together, right? It's like, okay, what are we going to do next? Like we're in this really solid space. What are we going to go out and start creating? And that can be projects, that can be family, that can be settling down, like, getting married, having children, that can be so many different dynamics in a relationship, starting a business together, donating time together, picking up hobbies together. Like, what are these long-term commitments? And it's characterized by having much deeper conversations about the future. And it's funny because you would think that that's not something that dismissive avoidance want to do or things like that. But DAs by that point, they're usually really there having those conversations with you, like really open to that kind of dialoguing out about those sorts of things because they see it as like, our life, not your life or my life, right? Now, there's still interdependency. Both parties still have their freedom, their independence, but both parties really know how to work together and be in a relationship and a dynamic together that works. So you'll see that with commitment. And then there's bliss. And I would say something that happens in the bliss stage for couples is there's this little bit of honeymoon dynamic that comes back. Which is interesting. Like there's this extra sort of like spark and fun and laughter together and really just feeling like both parties really get along. They really, really click. And and that dynamic is there, but with everything else there. It's not that excitement, that really like a lot of joy spending time together, doing things together out in the world, creating together. It's not just coming from that superficial, and I'm not saying superficial in like a bad way, but just like more surface version that you'll have in the dating or honeymoon stage, because you haven't navigated each other so deeply yet. You don't know each other so deeply yet. But there's much deeper roots to that type of fun and energy and connection that both parties have to each other. And so you'll see this clicking, this excitement, this, some of that stuff comes back online, but it's while you're out in the world building and creating things together as a much more deeply united couple. So, um, these are the things you want to take away. These are the things you want to see. Like, where are you currently at in the relationship? And just to review, right? You've got those 6 stages. Relationships will be different based on each of the 6 stages. I've seen so many people misunderstand that and then break up a relationship or break off a relationship thinking it was ending, or cause chaos to a relationship thinking that that's the passion, or so many of those dynamics. But be mindful of the 6 stages. Then be mindful of those big pillars we talked about: the vulnerability, the acceptance, and then the key parts of integrated attachment theory, which are core wounds, needs, emotional patterns. These are our healing, right? That we'll see, our communication, our boundaries, and our coping mechanisms, right? Or behaviors, and really like doing that work to get into interdependency. And then we also have the dynamics of what some of those lessons are in each of those stages of relationships, and how the securely attached person shows up versus the insecurely attached styles, and what to pay more attention to instead. I hope you enjoyed this sneak peek from one of our webinars. We have 6 live webinars every single week. There's tons of time to come into those webinars, get your questions answered. And we have a past webinar library of many, many webinars about all sorts of different topics, as well as over 60 different courses that can really help you tackle everything from healing your attachment style and reprogramming core wounds to becoming the master of your own emotional state, learning your deep relationship needs and personal needs, as well as how to fulfill them, discovering your boundaries, breaking codependency, healing stress in the workplace. I mean, you name it, we've got all sorts of things in there waiting for you. If you want to check it out, you can use the 7-day free trial link down below in the description and gain access to all the resources at the Personal Development School, as well as you can come in and ask me your personal live questions, and I will be there to support you and answer anything that you have. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe if you are enjoying this channel.